Dr. Snipes, thank you for talking to the Bulldog today.
Sure, thank you.
Are you anticipating long lines in November? I know you're trying to avoid that. Do you see it as a possibility?
I kind of think we'll probably have long lines in November. Since I've been here, I'm into my 9th year, every time we have a general election, we have long lines. Most of the time, the long lines occur toward the end of the week.
You already sent me your budget for last year and this year. Your core budget has gone down, but your election budget has significantly gone up. I know it's an election year, but just like everyone else, you're working with less resources, aren't you?
Well, what happens is in a year when we have major elections, that's why you'll see an increase in the budget. And yes, we are working with fewer resources. You sort of figure out if you can have less of this, that'll give you an opportunity to have some of this. So that's what we do with our core. And the same way with the elections budget. We really try to look at previous years to see what kind of expenditures we had and look at the number of voters we got and what was the percentage of turnout. And we start each election at ground zero. We know we have a certain number of voters that we need to project may participate in an election, and it's really like a shot in the dark. It's the most scientific approach we can use, but you don't know what the candidates are going to be like. You don't know what the issues are going to be like, because those are the things that really drive turnout.
The budget went up to $3 million in the election portion. Did you buy more machines?
We did buy more equipment because since we went to paper voting, we used the ballot on demand machine. The more of those machines you can put in a site, then the shorter your lines will be, because we have to process the voter through the registration system, which I showed you a few minutes ago. Then we have to print a ballot at early voting for every single voter. So I think I mentioned earlier we have 782 precincts. So a voter from those precincts can show up anywhere. You may live in Pompano and decide you want to go to lunch in Pembroke Pines and you think you'll vote down there. So we have to have the ability to produce a ballot for you. That's where the ballot on demand machines come in.
That's good to know, because then all you need is your ID.
Okay. And we check you in, and then we print a ballot at the same time. That's just for you.
I live in Broward County, and I received an absentee ballot, and as you told me, there is an increase in absentee ballots, probably because your office has been on top of getting those out. But for people who are worried, how do you know your absentee ballot will be counted?
Because it comes to the Supervisor of Elections of Broward County, so it's going to be counted. And so, but on a more specific note, if a voter requests an absentee ballot and is a registered voter, we send the ballot out to the voter votes it, sends it back in to us properly packaged. And one of the reasons I say properly packaged is because there's a voter certificate that you have to put your ballot inside that certificate. It's also a mailing envelope. On the back of the voter certificate is a line for signature. So to help the voter see the line for the signature, we placed a black arrow and a red X. If that ballot comes back in from a registered voter and they have signed that ballot at the black arrow and the red X, that ballot is going to be counted. But if there is no signature on the envelope, we cannot count that ballot, and that's according to Florida law. That's because the signature is the tool that we use to verify that this is the voter who requested the ballot.
Now that doesn't become a provisional vote.
No, it becomes a, what do we call it? A rejected ballot, and the canvassing board makes that decision. And just as an aside, the canvassing board looks at every ballot where you can't determine the voter's eligibility to really cast that ballot. And they look at the ballot and they'll make the determination of whether or not it really is to be rejected. And then we have to store it.
The new voting laws are in place, and one of the things I think people may not understand is, and they probably take it out on your office, the changes don't come from the Supervisor of Elections. The changes are from our elected officials.
The laws for elections come from the state of Florida, and those laws are put into effect by the legislature. Sometimes our office has things that are really important to us, and we will write those proposals up and send them through our legislative process. So we've influenced a lot of legislation over the years like that. And in this past legislative session, we did not have anything that we thought needed to be changed or thrown out, because really we had a very good process. So the changes that we are dealing with now did come from the legislature, which means they are law, and that's what we have to follow.
Have you noticed any problems with the changes?
Not really. I don't think there are as many groups conducting voter registration drives as there typically have been. However, we've not really gotten into the actual presidential race yet. So once we know who the Republican nominee is going to be, we know that that person is going to be the opponent of President Barack Obama. And so then I think that's when the groups will begin to really get on the ground and start their voter registration efforts.
Back in 2008, the third-party registration groups, would you say they were smaller groups or larger groups, like the League of Women Voters or NAACP?
There were mom and pop type groups, you know, somebody in the neighborhood wants to get together and do a voter registration drive.
Do you foresee that this year too?
I do. I think it'll be on a smaller scale.
With the new voting changes, is your office facing any particular challenges that you foresee in the election year?
I think the greatest challenge that we have is the education and outreach, making the effort to share the changes with as many people as possible. And we do that through all kinds of communication techniques. Talking to you, you know, when the information is viewed that you're getting today, then someone is going to see it and learn something different or hear something that they haven't heard before. We go into churches, we go to festivals, we go to football games on Friday nights, we go to shopping centers, we go anywhere, and radio and television. So we're all over the place, plus on our website, everything that we think is critical for a voter to know.
What's your message to the voter this election year?
I like for the voter to know that there have been some changes, but I want them to prepare themselves to study what those changes are. Like I said, they can always go to our website. We have information in newspapers. If they miss something that was run in the newspaper, they can go to the website for especially the Sun-Sentinel, because that's usually who we advertise with, because it is the real local paper for Broward. So we advertise with the Sun-Sentinel, we advertise with the Spanish version of the Sun-Sentinel, and sometimes we'll put something in a local paper like a Spanish community paper or other community papers, like I put the early voting in the West Side Gazette. So we just try to, it's just ongoing. But I'd like for the voters to really pay attention, and if they're going to vote absentee, perfect. We don't have a problem. We love it. But if you're going to vote that way, be careful in reading your information, sending it back to us. I want the voters to know that it's going to cost $1.10 to put your voted absentee ballot in the mail. But if you want to drop it off at our office, that's perfectly all right. You cannot drop it off at one of the polling places on Election Day. That is against Florida law.
And I would think, too, don't wait until the last minute.
Don't wait to the last minute. Postmarks don't count. If you drop it in the mail, you say, oh, I'm going to drop it in the mail on Monday night. It's right here local. They'll get it by Tuesday. We may not. And postmarks don't count. So if it comes in with the mail on Wednesday morning, that's a ballot we cannot count, although it was postmarked for Monday. So we tell our voters to give yourself enough time. You can call in. The last day we can take a request to mail a ballot is today. It will be the Wednesday before the election. So I can get all kinds of requests in today, and there are requests to go all over. We can do that. But if a voter requests a ballot tomorrow, we can't mail it. They would have to come in and pick it up, and we will alert them to a time, and they usually come here because the ballots are produced here.
Thank you, Dr. Snipes, for talking to the Bulldog. Good luck.